Okay.
I look at my best. Uh,
You look fine to me. What's happening? Welcome to the show.
thanks, thanks. Hey, yeah, what have you been up to?
Ah, phew. I'm looking for work, so like I'm looking for some type of job to make money happen again. Ah, hold on one sec. Joey's on a ban. Yeah, I'm looking for work and just dealing with energy. The daily energy fluctuations. It changes all the time.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm dealing with, I've been speaking quite a lot with Brian Tate,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been quite helpful. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, have you spoken with him much, or you haven't had time?
I've never. I think I sent him one message. I have not communicated like a back and forth too much. Just like one brief message. I listen to him somewhat regularly. It's very interesting his whole thing he has going on. How do I?
Yeah, because basically, my sort of bloodline and lineage and heritage has brought on a unique set of problems, which I suppose you could just call opportunities to learn more. And it's the same old nonsense where you're not actually given the rules
Mm-hmm.
to the game, and you are then ostracized and penalized for breaking these rules that you were told nothing about. It's it's basically what you'd expect from the psychopaths and the empire of bullshit that they create.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been dealing with. It's oh, sorry, hold on, I'm getting okay, yeah, sorry about that. And because a lot of what org says, I can actually verify. I've seen firsthand to be true. Um,
Didn't she say you met him, or at least like a version?
yeah, no, I met him about 20 odd years ago in Cambridge. And the people, they've always been the same. I was in a sort of dreamlike state. It's a bit weird, although it didn't seem like that at the time. And these people doing this, they're always Caucasian, like white guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pretty too sure what that means exactly. Um, it might just be an attempt to try and make me racist, having all the gang stalkers and everybody always be white. That's going back 30 years till now. It could be an attempt to do that because there's another guy I know, Bruno Baraba, and he's Caucasian, and it looks like his gang stalkers are always brown skinned
Mm-hmm.
boys.
Ah.
So
Ah.
it looks to me like trying to create bigotry and increase racial animosity in the quote unquote target, which, yeah, I mean, I'm looking like a bit of a mess right now because the targeting it got really bad over the last couple of weeks. It's improved over the last couple of days because Brian has just had enough of these guys. make human bodies, okay, they were tormented to hell and back by these, like as Org says, they're a kind of animal. You know that they don't have a soul. They're not a collection of the Most High, so therefore they can't have an empathy with all that is. They're sub-creation, and so they don't have the ability to feel empathy for others. And how they don't actually know the difference between right and wrong. A human being naturally knows the difference between right and wrong, and that tells you where we are. That we've got like some Library of Congress with like 1,000 books of so-called laws, when a real human being doesn't need any books. He knows what's right and he knows what's wrong automatically.
Right.
He doesn't need to be told not to rape or rob or kill. He doesn't need to be told that. The animals though do. And there's tons and tons and tons of the animals, or the NPCs, whatever you want to call them. And they're very easy to control, these creatures. They're for a person with a soul, a human being, the truth is naturally important to us, but for them it's weird. For them it's what's popular. Okay, if it's popular first, then if it's true second, that's a bonus. But it must be popular. And that's ridiculous, but that comes down to just being in the animal consciousness body, where the vast, overwhelming majority of people actually are, whether their souls sleep inside the body or whether they don't have any souls, I'm not sure. The number that keeps resonating with me, though, with the research I've been doing, like 16 hours a day, is about 1 in 50,000 people here has a soul. And that to me sounds about right. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the number of people I've actually spoken to in 42 years that's had an interest in reality or justice or logic or anything like that, it's been almost nobody.
It's very low. It's very low.
Very, very low. Whatever the true number is, it's very, very low. And so that's how they recruit the gang stalkers, because these are people, these are beings that just do what they're told to do. They don't have any understanding. They want to be part of a group, because that's the animal pack instinct consciousness. And whoever's in the group is good, and whoever's outside the group is bad.
Right.
And this is how they operate. And part of the problem is that, again, as Org was saying, they've got very like the real. Sorry about this. Hold on. The real state of technology here is actually like 1 million years more advanced than what people think. So this is what I understand is happening, and hopefully this will help other people. It's that there was a limited amount of time, memory, information, energy in this universe for the story to be played out. The story of mankind. Usually, a set of beings are given like 90 to 100 million years. They're dropped on a place like this without even a pencil, and then it's over millions and millions of years. Because if you were to think, for example, the kind of technology required to create a pencil, you'd have to find the graphite for the lead, you'd have to find the copper to hold the eraser in place, you have to find the rubber. Where does the rubber come from? How to best fashion it and mold it, how to best sharpen the pencil, finding the right paper, the symbols, attaching meaning to the symbols, book binding, and so on. This is not simple. This is something that would take an intelligent species even thousands of years to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
If you're with me. And what's supposed to happen is that this system would then send down, at each checkpoint, it would send down different angels, and they'd be programmed with information, knowledge, and so on. So you've cut out?
No, Joey's trying to join us, but he seems to be having trouble. Another guy's trying to hop on.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's. Oh, are you there?
Yeah, but please continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's like I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm hiding. I don't want to interrupt, Samir. Please, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Samir. This is Joey. I don't know if you guys have met before, but.
No, I haven't met. Nice to meet you, Joe. I was just trying to make sense of where we are. It's been a part of about 20 years of work on my part. It gets quite complicated. So these angels are supposed to come down, and at each checkpoint they give you different information, and this is covered in the Bible. But what happened was, if this is a 500-page book, around 400 pages or so, 350 pages, the characters realized that they were actually in a living being, and they gained access to time travel technology, which was beyond their level of responsibility. That they went back in time and added like 100 pages to the book, and so now we're basically paying the price for their crime, because they've already done everything. They've had a great time. I think this is where the room, the whole children's nursery rhyme of magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all. And I think what was happening there was some of the queens or whatever back, a couple hundred years ago had like a flat screen TV on the wall of their castle, and one of the maids saw it and she didn't know how to make sense of it, so she called it magic. This is where I think a lot of this comes from, the crystal ball, it all being technology, and these time travelers basically having a great time at our expense. Now, we're in a situation where we're very near the end of the game. We're probably about 18 million years evolved, around there. Okay, so this is towards the end of the game, and now we have to be rapidly moved forward from where we thought we were, because they created their own separate civilization, from where we thought we were to where we actually are. So that's why we had cars with wooden wheels like 100 years ago, and now you've got hive mind technology with cluster topology, that's a science you only need to know if you're going to inject an intelligence into a swarm of nanobots. All of this stuff sounds incredibly crazy, but it's what's happening, and the only way to really explain going from cars with wooden wheels to where we are now, that's millions of years of evolution. So it's not a joke, and I don't think that we're actually capable of doing that. Not when people like voluntarily vote for people like George Bush. They voluntarily did that. No one forced them. Can you imagine? You got other people, they fight with vending machines, and the vending machine falls over and kills them. So we're not that brilliant. It's our ego that likes to tell us, yeah, you are so smart. You went from cars with wooden wheels 100 years ago to artificial intelligence, light machines 100 years later. It's like, no, we're not that smart. It's that's an appeal to our ego, and so essentially, yeah, what we've got now is just trying to put a handle on the situation. It's and this is what Org was saying, that the chemtrails all the chemical, all the material that they got in the chemtrails is, as I understand it, and I don't even want to remember what it was. All the different chemicals.
It's all heavy
So what?
metals, right? Isn't it mainly heavy metals?
It's heavy. What I understand is that the mercury in the vaccines and in the tuna and other things is there to strip our central nervous system, okay, and our body is anabolic and catabolic, obviously. So it builds itself up and breaks itself down again. It's like a small breath. And so what happens is that through Codex Alimentarius, they reduce the amount of nutrition in our food, and that means that we're basically starving. People are overweight but malnourished at the same time, and then we absorb the heavy metals into our skin, and we get turned into a biochemical transceiver, and the mercury help to strip down the natural materials, and because there's not enough nutrition in our bodies, because the food isn't very good, our body then uses the next best thing, which is the heavy metals. And so you can actually see this in action, the hive-minded action. It's incredible. So, I mean, and they like to play around with guys like me because they know I already know. And the targeted individual program, it's a weird one. I don't actually think that, I mean, some people might be added to it later, but for example, with me, the interference in my life and my psychosocial spiritual development happened happened from the age of 3. That's when it started, and the whole program, I won't get into like who it was, but it was military people, and when I analyzed how they worked, it was the same precise methods used by psychopathic narcissists. And this is the strange part. I started to think of psychopathic narcissists as weaponized artificial intelligence, like as part of an interdimensional shock troop into this world.
I've thought about that myself.
Yeah, because if you look at it, people should be evil in different ways, but they're not. They're not evil in different ways. Well, how do they operate? Every single time, it's isolation, gaslighting, triangulation, and projection. That's it. It doesn't matter if they're Nigerian narcissists, or Norwegian, or Swedish, or American. It's the same. It's the same characteristics.
Yeah.
Every time, they all work to the same very long-term program. Right, Joe? The same long-term program. And the other thing I found that can you hear me, Gary?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, okay. The same long-term program, and they don't seem to have any human characteristics. Like, I've got a set core of talents. One of them is, and it started when I was very young, and it might have been triggered by the freaking treatment I went through. We can get to more of that later if you want. And that's an ability for me, when something happens that I don't understand, my mind just files it away, and then it doesn't matter. If I don't understand something, I don't let it go. I don't. It has to, because once they've got you to accept absurdities, they can get you to commit atrocities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the main thing. It was brilliant. It was Star Trek, and Picard had been captured by, I believe, the Cardassians, and he was being tortured there. And the only thing he had to say is that there are 5 lights, when there were 4 lights. And that was it. The torture continued until he said that there were 5 lights, until he tells a lie that he knows in his heart is not true. Then they've got you by the balls. That's the whole, you know, two planes and four buildings thing. There are
Yeah.
five lights, not four lights, and they just want you to break your intellectual back and to remove your integrity, because if you don't have integrity, you end up like with the population that we have now, which are, spineless, gutless, mindless jellyfish, for the most part. So, um,
It's
my point was,
it's also that's also Orwellian. Uh, that's the Orwellian doublespeak also that you're talking about, where you were just giving two opposing point of views, and they both they oppose each other, but they both can be seen as truth in their own right. So it fragments the mind, and then it just confuses people in the long run. It's the same sort of thing. And I mean, I agree with you. The population, I guess if you call them the NPCs or whatever, it's not only that they're mindless. It's just that they only seem to act on programming. Even family members and whatnot that seem outside of the mindfulness arena, it's like a program is running. And as far as the aggression stuff, I mean, I tie it back more to the mind virus rather than say a cabal or a group of individuals, and I do that for the very specific reason of not getting myself into the black versus white war, which can never be won. If you think of it as a virus that equally we as a species are dealing with, a virus that seeks to eat everything and does not reply or respond to any logic. It only finds that thing within the human being that is wishing to control or wishing to assert willpower or something, and then it attacks that. Period. Like, it doesn't matter what type of logic is being used. It doesn't matter if you're using empathy. I mean, it wants to eat the empathy anyway, but it's like a trap system. It's a very deeply layered mental trap system.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I'd agree totally, and they try to give us ways out in a way. If you look at Star Wars, the books are excellent, and there's one. It's the story of Darth Plagueis, and in it, they're discussing basically. It tries to find out what you want, and then wants to deny you what you want. You know.
Yep.
And in order to create frustration, and then to only find what you fear and force you to face it. It's it's a very frustrating process. And what I wanted to say regarding the they call it street theater. Okay, now this was just phenomenal. This was happening with my aunt. Okay, so my aunt, because 5G was in Oman, okay, at my cousin's place, and I went to stay with him, and it's a nightmare. 5G. Okay, I didn't sleep well the entire time I was there, and the healthier you are, the more you do meditation, prayer, that sort of thing, the more you will feel out of sorts. Because there's a transmitter right outside his house.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they did was amazing, okay? You have to have seen this. So I go there, and I meet my aunt. Now, she's a nice woman, usually. Not just usually, she is. It was with her and my cousins, okay? And so that's fine. But I go there, and when I look back, I realized I was feeling a little out of sorts. But I wasn't self-aware enough at the time, because this thing likes to disturb my sleep all the time. And so I get to my aunt, and they started a skit for me. When I say they, my aunt had nothing to do with it. She didn't even know. she was she was pointing to my coffee and was like, "Who made that?" She was saying it in a very sharp way, in order to provoke a response. Because apparently that's what the AI needs in order to continue its script. It
Right.
needs you to play your part and needs you to have your response. So I gave my response, and then that started the whole rest of the script. That literally was like some Hollywood scriptwriters or whatever had written down the script. Okay, and then when they actually got me to fall for the fucking trap, and this does happen sometimes. I do. That time I did fall into their trap. I was tired enough to do it, and then the way my cousins and my aunt were reacting, they were like overjoyed that I had fallen into the skit, into the trap. But it wasn't them, because they didn't know anything about what was being played out. And then, like, in 5 minutes' time, they didn't even remember it happened.
You asked them directly?
Oh no, I didn't ask them directly. It was more like, say for example, you're going to meet, I don't know, some Nigerian people or some people from the rural areas. Okay, that they don't know what Friends is. The TV series Friends.
Uh-huh.
And then these people, who don't know anything about this Friends video, then start acting out a skit from Friends. Okay, like exactly from Friends, and then they have you play the part of Ross. And then you say Ross's lines in a sort of forced speech. So it's not them, because they and the whole energy of the thing was, it was weird, man. It's like it's exactly what Ork was talking about. It's like, because what these guys, because they've been trying to entice me into this whole thing, because that's basically what torture is. Because these guys don't want me to have a girlfriend, they don't want me to have a friggin' life, they don't, I'm broke almost all the time. It's I'm supposed to be like a personal trainer, and I look like hell now, because I'm not sleeping well, I'm not able to, to train properly or eat properly, or, and they upped the friggin' ante, when I tried to start healing myself, and they, regardless of what some people think they know is going on. You see, this is part of the problem with me about, do I tell people or do I not tell them the state of the technology? Because even up to a year ago, when I heard somebody, William the Bastard, I think, on YouTube, if anybody's interested, I can get it for you. And he was talking about how the technology is far enough advanced that they are semi-permeable. So you can actually hold out their hand, and you can shake their hand, and you can more or less feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's like when you touch a TV screen and the static. It's like a hand made out of static. Do you follow?
Yeah.
It's like a hand made out of static, but it can also, and they're doing very unpleasant things. Maybe because I was speaking with Brian, and I actually, I didn't buy to begin with, because he was saying that he's the event, and that he was a much larger consideration, or much more of a prime mover than myself, or I think many other people had considered to be true. But I've spoken with him enough that I think that there is definitely something going on there, and targeting, ramped up enormously. It's it's the level of cruelty.
Brian who?
Brian Tate.
Okay.
He's a friend of Ork Tellers.
You don't know him, Joey?
I'm not sure if I did.
Brian Tate is describing himself as God. I'm not sure if he's saying he's God of the realm, or if he's the end-all, be-all. But he's not doing it in exactly the same way as most of the sort of messiahs do that come and play this sort of scripted role. He very much does what he's doing in his own way. Although, personally, it's always a bit of a stretch to and dangerous to give any piece within the whole. This idea that the piece is the whole, it doesn't logically really work to begin with, but it's fine. It's fine in my mind for exploring purposes, and of course as creative. As creators, we can embody whatever we're embodying. So if he's embodying that, then that's what he's doing. But it's interesting.
No, yeah, I'd agree with you. That you see, for myself, having been brought up in a family with pretty intense military and diplomatic connections that I can't really go into, but you end up with a pretty unique set of issues, and all the things that you read about regarding the Zuzetsu, it's they do really because this evil thing, it likes to get sublime, divine sort of technology that could be used for healing, mass healing events, and doing all kinds of extremely good, kind, and meaningful things. And instead, what they do is very weird things. Like, during my own research, I found that if they manage to get used to some of your patterns, they actually send out texts to a bunch of weirdo losers who are just hanging around, and they're like, oh, he's going to the petrol station now, get in front of him, all right, and just take as long as you can. And it sounds weird, but I swear to God, it's what they're doing. And how do I know this? It's because what I love to do to them is with Muhammad Ali, he would dance around and around and around in the circle, like clockwise, about 12, 13 rotations, and then quickly go in the other direction. And that's how he got the other boxer and hit him with a punch that he didn't even see. That's what I like to do to them. I flip the script on them, and I get into a routine, and they think that they're entraining me when I'm actually entraining them. And then I'll flip the script, and I'll just go down a side channel, down a side road. And this is the really disturbing thing. It's like being in a Truman Show, because it's about they want to. And Org was talking about this, is death by a million mosquito bites. It's the weirdest thing. So, like, they know I leave for work at about 5:30 or 5:15, okay? And so there can be a ton of cars, all right, in front of me and behind me. And then you do the strangest thing, just like Truman did in the show, was when he was whimsical and unpredictable, and he just went down a side. He'd decide to go down that road, and all the cars would come out, and then he'd go around another 12 times, and he goes, oh, well, you look at that, it's all empty. That's what it's like. So I'd go down these side roads, okay, I'd just pull down random, I'll be there for like 5 seconds, because there's cars, a line of headlights in front of you and behind you, and it gives the impression on these windy country roads in England that you're, that there's a lot of people around. But you go down the side road, you come out 5 seconds later, and it's empty. All the cars are gone. This happened time and time and time again, and it's so weird, because people are thinking there's no way that there would be a group out there that would do this when there's homeless people, there's people starving to death, there's people dying of cancer, there's stupid wars. There's all kinds of nonsense going on. There's missing children. There's God knows where we get our food from, or what's inside it, and that there's resources actually being spent on doing incredibly stupid stuff like this. Or they'll break into the person's house and move things around, okay, and then leave. And then, but when I say break in, they steal a key or something like that, Okay, they get in, they move stuff around the house, but they don't steal anything. So when you call the police and you say, yeah, someone's been in here, my couch is in different places and so on, and the police say, was anything stolen? You say, well, no, nothing was stolen. And they're like, well, why would anybody break into a place, move things around, and then leave, and not take anything? Well, that's the whole point. The whole point is to make it seem deranged, that no one would be this deranged. But humanity's default position is insanity, you know. And then we point to the sane people and call them insane. It's very frustrating. But the point is that this is the sort of thing that they go ahead and do. And then there's other very odd things. And this is quite worrying because this is in one of Org's videos, what's going on, and it's about the psychotronic warfare. It's about 11 minutes, I think. And he's talking about how they want to condition a scapegoat by entraining their mind to a computer using scalar waves and things like that. It looks as though they wanted me as a scapegoat, and been harassing me for quite some time, and I never really understood what the big deal was, but it appears to be some sort of soul contract. The point is so one of these weirdos, he kept on giving me like the evil eye, for no reason. And so I actually, he's one of those gang stalkers. He wants to provoke contact. So this is where my core talent comes in, one of my talents. And so I actually go to speak with him, but I'm not being aggressive because how this thing works is provocation. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing the machine understands is provocation, provocation, provocation. It does not understand how to contact or communicate with a human being in a human sort of way, because there's a million different ways people can actually speak with each other. But no, this thing, it's always provocation, and it can be pretty clever how it does it. So I go to speak to this guy, and he says to me the code word, Crime Watch. And I'm like, what? He goes, Crime Watch. And I was supposed to go to like a fugue state, because what happened, but I didn't. I actually showed empathy for him, and I found out that the judges, who pedophiles big time over here, I mean, everyone knows that, or at least, they should know it by now, are using, he told me about how his children are being used as leverage in the courts against him, and that's how he's being like forced into doing this, into harassing me. And then we have this conversation, and I sort of I have empathy with him, because it sucks having your children used against you, and then you have to do some harass some innocent guy, which was me. And then what happened later on was that my mind did the pattern match, and in my dreams they had actually started off with the code words Crime Watch, and then I was supposed to follow through a particular theater for I suppose for their amusement, because apparently what happens is that people like me, maybe because I was sold out by a family member, wouldn't surprise me, we're used by newbies within the government to harass and practice their tactics and strategies, and they do it on people like me who they know are harmless, because otherwise I wouldn't be walking around on the street. And it's a kind of a cruel thing to do, but it's how it works. And then I got a dream the next night, and they were talking about they were very, very angry with me in the dream. They said I was supposed to say what they wanted me to say, and it's this stuff is just so unbelievable that even myself, if I wasn't experiencing it myself, I wouldn't believe it. But this is where again they've got strange, and this will hopefully help other people. They've got strange rules. Basically, most of the people here are insane on this planet, and they think that if they tell you what their plans are, even if you don't understand it, then they are unburdened from their karma, which is crazy. I mean, obviously you have to understand it. I mean, I can't put a stop sign in Arabic, and then you go past it and you crash. And I say, hey, I gave you the message. It's not my fault you didn't understand it. No, it is my fault. It's the
Fabian.
sending. It's the onus is on him to make sure he's understood. So, so when Org came to visit 20 years ago in Cambridge, and the things he was speaking about,
Samir?
Yeah?
I want to continue this, and welcome, Fabian. No, you're fine. It's very good. The thing is about to end for the free version, but I'm just gonna reboot it. I'm gonna reboot it and send out another link. Joey, I'll text you another picture, and Fabian, just check the link on Guys Unisolating, and we'll go for round 2. Is that good? All right.
So when's round 2?
Right now, I'm gonna send the link out.
Okay.
Okay. All right, guys. See you in a sec. All right, hopefully they can come back. Targeted individuals. I know it's a big thing, but it's coming out. It's coming out slowly but surely. Look. Hey, welcome back.
Thank you.
What do you think of all that?
I can relate.
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, it's challenging where he's at.
Zoom hates you. Apparently, why? Click on Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Joey?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see your image yet. There you go. See ya.
Hey.
I'm trying to corral everybody.
I'd like to ask Samir what it would look like to
There he is.
just.
Ask away.
Samir, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I managed to
Nice.
find.
Nice work. Yeah, I can relate to a lot of what you said in almost everything, and wanted to ask, what would it look like, or what would it feel like, without them having power over you, or what would it look like if whatever they threw at you, it was just like it just flowed around you. You know, you just, like you said, not necessarily you have to go out of your way to throw them off, but just to do whatever you need to just to flow and push through it so it doesn't distract you, I guess.
That's a good point that you're making. But you can throw a stone at somebody, and even if it misses the person, the bad intent, hits the mark, and that's what really gets me. It's the endless cruelty and bad intent that started with me from a very young age all the way up till now, and it's exhausting, really. That part, and what as well. This is the part that really sort of pissed me off too. Was again, Org was saying part of, because he talks so obliquely sometimes about certain issues, like he'll say the pain givers and the pain receivers, and the pain givers are the guys who drop bombs, the B-52 bomb droppers, and the pain receivers are the people on the ground, and then they lose their wife or child or whatever, and then they have to turn that pain, misery, and loss and try to transform that suffering into knowledge, growth, and wisdom.
By whose perspective is this coming from, Samir? Who said that?
That was Org.
That was
He
Org.
was saying that, in his video on the spiritual evolution system, the basic idea was to transform or grow through the suffering, use the suffering as a medium to grow through, and so the more suffering that you get, the more knowledge, the more energy can come through on the other side. And so the issue that the place that I'm stuck at here, and it is strange because I have had help in this area in the past, is that a lot of the troubled spirits are actually people like me who were tormented during our human lives, and after we die, then we come back as what people thought were demons, but they're just spirits that are very pissed off, And a lot of them now are going after the gang stalkers, which is what goes around comes around, because this whole thing is a gigantic mess in which the technology, the side that uses technology to inflict pain and suffering, their growth has been too radical and too fast, and us guys who are supposed to be on the spiritual side are we basically are in too much of a weak position, because a lot of the knowledge that we were meant to be left with, a lot of the sorry,
it's been squandered.
It's been squandered and stolen. It's been stolen, and so that's the horror is that it's like weight training. Weight training is the pain, but then you need food, and that's the medium for growth.
Yep.
We get inflicted with pain, like someone's dying from cancer, or some other horror show has occurred. People get raped in family courts, and this is deliberate. This is a total attack on the family. It's just so obvious to me. I can see it so clearly, and I just look around at these morons. The level of frustration is incredible. But August saying this as well, basically, is or something akin to this, which is that people are killing themselves left, right, and center because the knowledge. How do you transform the pain into wisdom if you're not given the books or the information necessary to actually do that? And this is where it's become a real horror show, because not only is the information not there, it's wrong. The information is not just wrong, it's horrendous. And like when I was complaining about what was occurring to me going back 10 years, and I go to a psychiatrist, the guy said I was full of shit. The psychiatrist said that, and when you're drowning, you're not supposed to do that to a person. When they're getting flashbacks of the abuse they underwent for God knows how long, a psychiatrist isn't supposed to do that, and they do. And because this whole thing is, this planet is one big death machine, basically. It's a torture device, and to me that's linked with the black meteorite stones.
Right.
So what's happening on my phone?
We have Omar's trying to join. Omar's ceiling has joined us. Oh, there he is.
Hey.
What's up, buddy? Fabian, welcome, buddy. Good to see you. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear? I can't hear you.
He disappeared.
Omar's ceiling is back in the conversation. Ceiling popcorn. Fabian, I don't know if you want to contribute or not, but I can't hear you if you're wanting to speak.
At all. I'm a banana.
Fabian's gonna use a sign language. He says the English language has been too degraded, and we need to go back to sign language.
The idea of being telepathic and then nobody else would be able to hear this shit.
Well, we got 5 of us here. This is pretty good. Omar, how are you doing?
Tired as fuck. How are you?
I'm good. Samir's sharing some targeted individual personal information. I mean, everyone who's not a robotoid is a TI in the sense that this world is upside down at the very minimum. And as far as advanced tech used on some people, I mean, I assume it has to do more with your background and your proclivities, your strengths and your weaknesses as to whether or not it's like a major thing in your life or just a little thing in your life.
For sure.
It's definitely it's a terror realm. It's like a inverse terror realm that sees how much just because the balance is off. It's not.
It's massively off, and I was speaking with Brian about this. Brian Tate and also Org was talking about it. It's that the situation that we're in. It's us being inside a simulation, because if we were inside the real thing, it's all time, space, energy, and matter all happening at the same time. There would be no sequence or narrative or format to it. And
no linearity, you're saying?
Yeah, there'll be no linearity because it'll be all time, space, all happening at the same time. And apparently that that's where our hostiles come from. Our hostiles are fascinated by us because they live in that realm in which there is no causality. You see? So anything that they need to know in their present environment, they'll know about it. And so causality is something apparently they're fascinated in with us, and they love to. I mean, what I can share with you is that when you're, I don't like to use the word targeted, but when you're in a situation like mine, you end up with all kinds of people or beings taking an interest in you.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you one of the dreams that I had, if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so how it was he was one of the consciousnesses. You could call them controllers or social engineers here, and he was talking about how richly psychologically satisfying he found it to make tiny changes to human beings, to the environment, and watch those changes take root over very long periods of time. And he really, really liked this. I thought that was weird. And then he would go on to say, like, Samir, this is how I do it. And they would, because it's already out now that they've got technology that can see you, that can read minds remotely, and so on. And the idea is that this technology hasn't just been here now; that's been here for like hundreds of years. There's a very good channel called New Earth series, and in it, they've got Russian statues that were 3D printed, going back hundreds of years. It's really quite incredible. So the idea is that they've had this technology for some time, and what this guy was saying to me in my dream was that he would, how the system worked was he would put ideas into the heads of people like George Orwell and others, and Huxley, I suppose, and people like that, and then they would bring those ideas into the think tanks. The think tanks would then turn it into government policy. The government policy would then find itself in like a New Housewives magazine or some of that crazy nonsense that they've got going on. And apparently, this is how the social engineering is done, or has been done.
You're saying from the outside in, from these beings that play in the totality arena rather than the limited linearity arena. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And then they went on to tell me about why the human condition was how they were locked in place, and he went on to explain how, and I can't remember it exactly, but it was he explained how he went into like the neuroanatomy of the brain, and about how when you are trying to approach a person with a piece of information which is actually their salvation, but in their minds it represents anxiety and fear, and so that piece of information is then confused for the person bringing the information. Mm-hmm. That's why, like, we try to talk to people about, there's issues with the vaccinations of children and so on and so forth. You're talking about a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical lobby with its own agenda, okay? And what happens with a person is, rather than engaging with you in an abstract, building up abstract concepts in his mind in order to understand where the threat lies to himself, to him and his, he then goes personal on you. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. How is it the guy will start saying, "Oh, you didn't shave well enough today," or something. Like, how did we go from poor children being vaccinated, or some other crazy nonsense going on that's a real threat to us, and you go from that to you don't think I ironed my shirt well enough, or I need to exercise more or something. I'm like, well, wait. And this is what the person was trying to explain to me, was that in the minds, I think for whatever reason, people like me, you, Gary, and everybody else that's joined, we have maybe a more spiritually advanced immune system or whatever it is that's causing us to reject the script. And the others, the 99.9%, you literally cannot have a conversation with them about this because, they get on the attack and they go personal. Mm-hmm. And the guy was explaining to me about how anxiety is linked with whatever it is that's the problem. Mm-hmm. And then that is directed into the direct field of vision. So whatever you bring up that's abstract is translated by the people affected, by the people with the Stockholm syndrome,
into a personal attack on them, right?
Yeah, a personal attack on them, which is then projected outwards into their direct field of vision. So whoever they can see is the cause of their pain. And because the brain is shut down through the anxiety, they can't have abstract thoughts at that point. So it just becomes whoever has told them that is now the threat.
Omar,
and will be
are you raising your hand?
Acted on accordingly.
Excuse me, Professor Calban, can I add to that?
Please.
Okay, so the mechanism that's being triggered that you're alluding to is the reptilian forebrain in the front of the head. And what's happening is there's NLP that's bypassing the logic and rational centers of the brain when people are getting triggered like that. And what ends up happening is they are so used to getting brain hacked with that very simple sleight of hand that when somebody they know does it, you go from a friend to a perceived threat and they stop listening because they are not used to that type of feedback loop, feedback loop coming from anybody other than a person of authority. So they immediately stop listening because they're confused, but that's where their base level consciousness is.
Oh yeah.
And that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, but it does mean that you have to work with them differently if you want them to listen. So you basically have to be coming from a different place in the way that you present information to them, and then they can actually hear you. But until you learn to change things around, it's like playing with a full deck of cards or a partially full deck of cards, where kind of we're at, and we're all working towards figuring out where the 52nd card is, and so on. But they're working with about 3 or 4 cards, so we have to be nice to them and work on their level. Because if you want somebody to understand something, you can't talk to them at your level. You have to talk to them at their level, period, regardless of who they are or what you're trying to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yes, the good point. You see, the issue that I found there, Gary, your camera's gone off.
Mine's went off?
Yeah, no, I just couldn't see.
Gary's is there. Joe is gone.
Joe is gone, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm just hiding. It's okay.
He's hiding.
No.
Please continue.
Okay. So again, can I see? It's a bit off-putting if the camera's not working.
You can make a stick puppet. Put a little stick puppet of Gary there with a backwards hat.
Am I not visible to you, Samir?
No, now you are. Now you are.
Okay.
Because I agree with what the other guy said.
Omar?
Where we're really stuck, I've found, is that it's like Winston Churchill was saying. People, pretty much everybody at some point in their lives trips up over the truth. but they pick themselves up quickly, dust themselves off, and carry on walking like nothing had happened.
Yeah, that's a good
Okay, and what's happening there is it comes down to the difference I've found between human decision making and decision making found in the rest of the animal kingdom. So a lot of people think that the difference between us and the rest of the animals is our much vaunted high intelligence, but that's not the case. The difference is that if you had, say, a dog and it was digging for its bone in the garden, and it was couldn't find the bone, it stops digging and would go somewhere else and start digging there. A human being would say, I've dug this far, I might as well continue going. We are motivated, and our decisions are swayed and molded and shaped by how much we've invested, rather than how much we intend to get out of it. Because we don't like sunk costs.
Mm-hmm. But that model is.
Hold on, wait, Gary. Let me finish. Because there's a point here I'm making.
Go ahead.
So, all right. So, what happens is say, for example, I'm just going to use a fairly crude example, but you have somebody from the KKK, for example, and he's been brought up racist. He's maybe even killed a few black people based upon this misapprehension. And then sometime later on in his life, 40, 50 years old, say, and this was an American History X, Edward Norton, if I remember, he had to have a change of heart because, he found out the reality that, they were, that demons come in all shapes and sizes. So, say this KKK member, when he's about 40 or 50, a black guy saves his life, right? And he finds out, my God, if I'm going to take this on board and I'm going to change I can't just accept this as being true and carry on with how I've been before, because he's likely chosen his wife on racist principles. He's taught his children about the racism. He'll have to tell his mother and father and grandparents that they're wrong about their thoughts about black people. Okay, and then when he can't do that because he won't be able to change them, not after this long, so he's going to have to rip himself up from his basically cultural, technological, social matrix and start somewhere new in New York City at the age of 40 or 45.
Mm-hmm.
So he can do that, or he can pretend that never happened, that the black guy never saved his life, or he can try to lie to himself in some way so he can go back to being a bigot. Now, this is the very smart move that the psychopathic reptiles, or whoever they are, have pulled on us. They've gotten us so invested in the Maya, or the illusion, or the delusion, all right, that for people to stop now, all right, would be to admit that they've been wrong before. And this is where, the Bible talks about it. A lot of people just do not have the humility, and they've got too much pride, and they're not in touch enough with their subconscious to actually say, yeah, you know what, I was duped, I was fooled, okay, I got to make a course correction here, and, sometimes when I'm fooled, it makes me even more interested, not less. So, that's what people are going to have to do, but people don't want to accept. It's like Hitler was saying, if you're going to tell a lie, tell it big, tell it often. That way more people are likely to believe it. As well, if you get a critical mass of people going along with a particular lie, because most people, as I was saying, they care, is it popular first, and is it true second? And if it's true, then that's the bonus. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is it popular? And that's where we're stuck at. Okay, is that the radical for humanity to survive? Basically, I think we're gonna need to change on an unimaginable scale. Either that, or as Org was saying, there's control mechanism put in place to control the others, and it's already working. Because, I mean, over here in England, they had friggin' chemtrails. They made a pentagram into the freaking sky, man. Pentagram into the sky, and no one. And that's the other psychological principle that's involved here, as to why people don't look up. They don't look up because it will require them to face an anxiety. Because this is something that I found from my my 20 years of research here about what's going on with the subconscious. So what happens is that the human brain does whatever it can to stay away from pain. You see, whatever it can, and it's a real trick that nature played on us. Because a dog, for example, it can relieve itself of anxiety if it moves, if it breaks the line of sight with another dog. It can no longer see that dog, out of sight, out of mind, and it can now relax. The human being, however, can conceptualize threats, abstract threats, or direct threats. He can't just break the line of sight.
Oh, we lost Fabian.
Samir.
Yeah?
To track back for a second to your original point, the way that this is happening is the fourth density is being manipulated. Most people see this lighter. Most people see this flame, and most people think heat. But most people don't see the energy field here, and most people don't see the field here, and most people don't see how their field interacts with the flame. And so that brings us to the fourth density, and that's the energetic or astral density. Then you have fifth density, sixth density, seventh density, and so on. And from there out, it gets bigger. But the point I'm actually making is most people, their chakra system is so manipulated that they don't see anything other than just that this is a box of metal, and then they have the concept that fire comes out of it. But there's so much more, and until people start to see that and take control of their bodies back from the fourth density, where the interplay is happening, where that's where most of the manipulation that Og and a lot of other people are aware of. We're talking.
Yeah, the scalar waves.
You're not going to actually have any control over your thoughts and the formation of the matter around you. So you, for example, you're very, very, very intelligent, but you're also very tortured by your 12th chakra, your mental chakra, and your sacral chakra. You have a constant war going on between your heart and your head, and you don't really feel like you're ever that grounded, and that drives people fucking crazy. So I see that in you, and forgive me if I'm incorrect, but that's just kind of what I'm feeling right now.
No, it's a wonderful contribution. So thanks.
There's more, but not about you, but about the way that it all plays together and how you can start to really sort of remedy that. Have you ever hugged a tree?
I love trees.
Have you ever asked one if you could put your hand on it and see if it had anything to say?
Oh yeah, one of my best moments ever, in fact. Because one of the things, and it was from a Bible quote, if I remember. There was a film called Michael Douglas with Michael Douglas called The Game. and I believe it was from 1998. And it's basically like what I've been going through like the last 30 odd years. He only has to go through it for a couple of weeks, which is bad enough. But and in the film, the quote was, "I was blind, now I can see." You see, and that was that's what's lifted. Apparently, before we got here, because as I was saying with Gary earlier, was that we have to go through millions of years of technological, social, intellectual, and spiritual evolution to make up for the mess that the time travelers caused. Okay, so we've gone from cars with wooden wheels 100 years ago to cluster topology and it being used to inject intelligence into swarms of nanobots, which is insane. You don't civilization doesn't progress that rapidly in 100 years, and that's because the technology was already created, okay, and they've been withholding it from us, from our own civilization. And part of what's so strange about this is that, like I met Org 20 years ago in Cambridge. I was at Anglia University in Cambridgeshire, and maybe you could say his handlers or people who time travel with him, or maybe this was a memory somehow implanted in me and it wasn't actually real. Either way, it's pretty impressive because I do remember him 20 years ago back in Cambridge, and I wasn't the way I am now that I was then. I was very much into weight training and girls, nutrition, sports, and I can remember, so Org was there, he had a ponytail. You're familiar with Org Tellis, aren't you? Are you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and he had his ponytail there, and I can remember he was speaking to me, and it was the Caucasians that brought me to him, and they've always had that sort of smile in their face. It's a strange smile. And they might have been time traveling with him, or they implanted themselves into the memory as well. But I remember him, and he was talking to me about brain mapping, okay, neural anatomy, and the paradox. Basically, he said that the brain's layout is itself quite simple, but there's billions and billions of neurons, and that's what adds the complexity to it. And so he's talking to me about the brain mapping and by computers. This is like 20 years ago. And then he was talking to me about, in terms of evolution, if you have one animal, like a gazelle, and then nature will want a second animal to evolve fast enough to catch the first animal. Okay, and I can remember thinking to myself, this guy's got like a grace and a kindness to him, and he's very, very intelligent. I was thinking, well, why is he talking with me? Because I was like a little bit of I wouldn't say a dumb jock so much, but
You're a meathead.
I can remember
Meatheads, that's what we call them here. You frozen, Samir? Uh-oh. Is everybody frozen? I'm the only one who's not frozen. Oh, shit. That's what happened. The iPhone overheated. Alright, we should have them back in like a minute or two. Although we only have 5 minutes left. Sorry for that, everybody. iPhone overheated. And the iPhone is how we are connected here, so. On the plus side, maybe it will give us more time since it's probably going to have us have to start a whole new chat. There we go. iPhone is back. Let's see if we can pull this back up. Hotspot is on. Here we go. Okay, we should be back in just a moment. I guess we're gonna have to start the whole... Oh wait, no, maybe we already have one. Where is it? We're gonna have to start a whole new one. Okay. Copy Earl. Do-do-do. Maybe that's just that. Let's see. Gallery view, okay. Can you hear me, Omar? Ah, there you are. Okay. I've got two of you.
There's a really interesting problem I'm noticing in Zoom where you don't. Oh, that is weird. You don't. I don't know how to fix that yet. But what I did just notice is it won't let me join with the links. I have to type in the numbers manually, and it goes through.
That's weird. You're the only one I've heard have that problem.
Well, technology and me we have a weird relationship. Maybe it's just me, but
It usually works for me, the links, but
did you can me, by the way, as soon as I said Samir's having a rough time? Because I was like, oh fuck, I'm talking about it.
no, I didn't can anybody. My iPhone overheated.
Oh shit.
I'm in the car, so I don't disturb the normal people in the household with this type of discussion.
Who do you guys live with?
My brother and my childhood friend and one of his friends.
Oh, okay.
And Andrew.
And they're all pretty straightforward.
They're just living regular lives, you know. Everyone has some level of awareness outside of the so-called normal, but it's like Samir was saying, for most people I feel like that the first step to just admit like everything isn't exactly as given, that first step is very difficult if you've been in it for a really long time.
It is. Like, dude, I actually, so I've had this funny thought last night as I was laying in bed. Usually when I'll go someplace in public, I'll walk into a room or a building or a restaurant or something, and like I'll hear some plates drop in the back of the kitchen. Everybody will stop talking, and I'll do my hair and stuff. It's not that, but I just realized that it's a feel thing. So the live stream, that box that I showed you last time, is supposed to be interactive to about 8 feet. But I was interacting with it in my bed through the wall in another room 20 feet away last night when it was in my living room by my door.
Huh. So either it's extending its field or you're extending out to it.
Yeah,
or
one
both.
of the two. But it brought me to thinking maybe my field is just so wide, and that's not like a phallic statement, but maybe it's just wider than most people's fields, and so when I walk into a room, they notice that something's changed because they feel it. But I'm thinking preemptively, oh, that's weird. Why is it that I just opened the door? Like, I didn't do anything yet. You know, how do you know that I'm there already? So maybe that's kind of a funny thing. Maybe not.
It is a thing. I've noticed it with myself. Again, like outside of the egoic thing, the reels have an energy field that the other ones don't. That's just the simple to my eyes, to my perception. That's just what it is. If anything, it's like obnoxious to me that we have such a field, but at the same time are sort of vilified in the realm. It's like you're very important and very energetic to the realm, but as far as itself as a sort of entity, it wants to pretend like you're not that at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then the whole TI thing sort of factors into that as well. It's very strange. It's like the ultimate challenge for someone who's you know trying to figure the game out. It's the ultimate challenge.
Oh yeah, it's weird. Now when you said the role in the reel, I know the reel is the 3D map, so to speak. Is that? But what did you mean by the role in the reel? The interactive.
As far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
Well, it's a paradoxical arrangement to my eyes, because we are very powerful beings. That to me is implicitly understood by most of us who interact with each other on any platform. We're very powerful, and we also, through whatever means, have gotten shackles added on to us, whether it's by ourselves via high technology as part of a learning process, or whether it's an actual other that's shackling us. We have this inherent power, and then at the same time the realm itself doesn't like to sort of acknowledge, it doesn't like to differentiate us from NPCs, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Like, it wants to see us as exactly like them when we're not. Like our energetic signature is something entirely different.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's because until we figure out that we're different, it takes full license over manipulating our other densities and using our biophotonic field or our field or elements of it, I think anyway, into co-opting the driving of its agenda. Which is very much in the sense Jesus Christ. It wants to remember that blurb that I sent you the other night about what I think the problem is?
Mm-hmm.
That is there was a lot of stuff that I didn't interleave into that, but that's the general war that's going on between what people are calling the parasites or the controllers and the different densities that the 3D playing field is being manipulated on. And as far as Jesus, I must need more coffee. As far as that,
Do you want
brain fart.
Do you want me to read it? Are you okay if I read it for the listeners? The thing you said.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that will help refresh your soggy brain as well. So,
I swallowed smoke, so I'm kind of like, holy shit.
So you said something about the main problem.
I'll be back in a minute. I think I have to go take a shit or something.
Okay. Go ahead.
I smoked and I took the cigarette accidentally into my stomach, so I'll be back.
Take care of business.
Yeah.
Don't swallow smoke. So Joey is out. I think
Hey, okay.
You alright?
Yeah, I actually hate it when people ask me that, but yeah, I'm always alright unless I'm like rolling around or like squealing or something. Very hard motherfucking nut to crack. Okay, so basically, yeah, go ahead and jump through that, but it was the point that you started talking about that dovetailed to the missing connection spot. Right before you were talking about the real and that. It was in between that and when I started talking.
When you inhaled smoke or you swallowed smoke?
Yeah, it was the time space where you had said something different that wasn't about the real or the reality. It wasn't about how people have trouble accepting that. It was intermediate to me starting to talk and then pausing.
Are you saying that there was some bit of information that was trying to be blocked or something? What are you trying to say?
No. There was a bit of information that you spit out that key coded what I'm trying to remember right now that tripped me up.
I don't remember exactly what I was talking about. I was talking about our role as reals, right, versus the robotoids, and how the realm itself treats us. That's the point I was making.
Oh yeah. It was right after that. Sometimes I accidentally read people's thought fields because they kind of go all around the person, so maybe it was that happening. But and that makes for a lot of fun talking to people that don't even know what we're talking about at all. It scares the shit out of them when I accidentally do it. But okay, so the thing that makes so many of us crazy is that we're aware, we're looking at all these external details, trying to piece back and reverse engineer to the point where we understand what happened and why what's currently happening is happening. But during that process, we are being manipulated by the system in the way that it's in place. And at the same time, we don't have a full picture yet of what's going on and what's possible. So a lot of shit doesn't make sense. Now, if I jump off of this to read something out of a PDF, can you still see me right now, or have I disappeared?
Your thumbnail is now on the screen.
Okay, well, you can still hear me apparently, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a excellent piece of writing called The Prism of Lyra. There's so many words out there, but this is something that I guess I had asked Ashley about a few weeks ago, and she said that, yeah, she read this many years ago. But so this is about the different densities, and this is it goes back to the thing that I was writing that I shared with you, where the war that's going on, the playing field is not three-dimensional, so that's why so many people don't understand ass from elbow from tit from toenail. Mm-hmm. The playing field is dimensionally and density based. So the most of the manipulation is very simple. It occurs in the density directly above us. And it's important to note that density is not a location. That's what a dimension is. A density is vibrational resonance or a vibrational frequency. For example, the density structure of the reality that we're in right now is primarily expressed in 7 levels, but each of those levels has sub-levels in it. So it's a lot like when a mathematician says there's an infinite number of space between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. There are an infinite number of numbers and realities in between those numbers. Math is very much the language that one can use to technically describe the world that we live in, but it misses the connection of the homogeny and the synthesis between the different disparate pieces. And the thing that I run into the most in my research and my trying to communicate things to people is that there's very little of a whole holistic, I hate that word, a integral understanding of multiple disciplines of thought. So it's kind of like you have a room of different kinds of scientists all trying to understand each other. Nobody in that room understands anything except for one subject, so it's very complicated. So where my brain does a better job of that, for whatever reason, is I understand all the different subjects simultaneously and can see the interrelationships between them. So the getting back to the scale of the numbers and the densities, the perception of orientation that somebody has is in relation to the other realities. So it gets even weirder, because that means that the density scale is relativistic to the observer. So you may see multiple densities, but the other person does not. But so to get back to the actual point, the first density, just to kind of run through what they are, the first density is an awareness of physical matter as a point. It's the most basic level of atomic frequency creation. It's an electron, a proton, and a neutron. It provides the shape of matter for the creation of atoms and molecules, minerals, water, things like that. Then you go to the second density, which is matter and awareness is expressed as a line or a linear thought form. A biological awareness, a species identity. And in that, consciousness expresses itself as a 2D vibration, but it does not have an awareness of itself or an ego. So much of the plant species are there, but their placement in that second density depends on additional factors, including that. Now I'm actually reading a sentence out of the thing, including the presence or absence of ego. So then when you go to the third density, that's where you have, so this is basically a lot like how you're learning math in geometry. You have, first you draw a period, then you draw a line, then they make you draw a box. The box is the third density, or a volumetric awareness, where you have an ego, because all of a sudden you have a loss of a group identity. And then you have, from there, it's born the development of your individual identity and your ability to remember things in a 3D space, wherein you go to physics and you stick your index finger straight up, your middle finger out to the side, and your thumb up on your right hand, and that's called the right hand rule. And that is a very rudimentary way to express three-dimensional densities: x axis, y axis, and z axis or z axis. And that, if you ever get lost in physics, there's a joke, you just stick up your right hand and you're kind of like, okay, there's three, and then you try to figure out what you're looking at.
You're making a corner of a box with your fingers, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing in there is the development of the individual identity creates the loss of group identity, which is why people feel that they are alone. And that amnesia, that lack of the awareness of the group identity is very painful for most people. And they spend their entire lives in that space where they become successful business people, and they step on other people to get what they want, and they dehumanize themselves. But it's because of where they're at. It's not a function of actually being evil or being bad or anything like that. It's just where their awareness of the different layers of being are. So in the third density, the vibration is created, and then you have an illusion and separation, and a challenge towards further awakening. And that is where actually it's really funny. Most of the people that are thinking that they're ascending into 5D or becoming woke or any of those things, that's where they're at. They are just realizing what it means on a very rudimentary level for human. And all of a sudden they think that they have the answers to the universe, but they have. It's very much like when you take a survey class or something in college, and then you become really passionate about the subject, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to be an astrophysicist now. Years ago, I had a photography teacher. I took his photojournalism class, and at the end of the class, I said, so what do you think of my work? I want to show you some photos. And he looked for a few minutes, and then he goes, you're not a photographer. And I was like really fucking offended, and I didn't understand at all. and this was in like 2002. And for years, I was like, I'm gonna prove this guy wrong. I'm gonna come back in like 10 years. I'm gonna show him all these pictures. And he's gonna shit himself. But this is the same thing that happened to my father in University of Minnesota. He sat down with his chemistry teacher, and he goes, "I'd like to be a chemistry teacher after taking your class. That was so cool." And he goes, "Mohammed, what do you think you know about chemistry?" And he goes, "A decent amount." And the teacher looks at him and says, "Sit down." And he sits down at the desk with him, and he takes his pinky finger and he touches the surface of the desk, and he picks it up as if to lift up an invisible grain of dust or sand. And he goes, "Mohammed, this is what you know about chemistry." And so that's where most people are with their awakening.
Yeah.
So presently, the humanity en masse is going through a transition to the fourth density, which is why we have all these changes happening all at once. But the interesting thing is where people are learning all these different lessons about integration, and the most intense level of that is the cultivation of growth with the self. And then you go up to the fourth density, which is the containment of that volumetric awareness, a super consciousness, a reintegration of group identity without a loss of ego identity. And as that vibration increases, a perception of past, present, and future are more fluid, with the ability to interface with multidimensional realities. Negatively oriented consciousness is more difficult to maintain. And presently on Earth, we have the third density overlapping with the third. And that is the basis of the control system that has people, intelligent people like Samir, you and others and myself and everybody sort of trying to explain what they know so they can piece together with other people what is happening, and this is the picture that we're trying to piece together. But most people just get lost in trying to describe the different elements and details and don't really see the macro. They don't zoom out, or they can't yet, or something. But when you get to that overlap, the understanding, when you get to the understanding of what that is, it's just a simple overlap of the third and fourth density. Easier said than done. But your vibrational rate, as it accelerates and steps up, you can understand the way that these things interact a lot easier, and you end up facing personal issues in a more intense and a rapid way, clearing things out. And it's actually pretty important to mention that there's no clear distinction when you transition between the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh density, because they're not physically oriented. There's a lot of overlap and a lot of blending and a lot of back and forth because they're not physical places. So you might be experiencing elements of your soul identity in all of them at once. Many people, for example, have a 3D life, go to sleep, manipulate things in the fourth density, and then they wake up and they don't want to wake up from that dream because it felt so good, because they were experiencing the next level of vibrational awareness and consciousness. So then you get, I know this is a lot of shit, then you get to the fifth density, so thank you for going on. You experience the awareness of I as a group, but it's not bound by linear time. And this is the density where sentient consciousness begins to awaken to its bloodline heritage and its blood code genetics. This is where the density where wisdom is stored.
Seventh?
Say again?
You said seventh?
No, that's the fifth.
Fifth. Okay.
take into that, they often want to share it with other people who are still focused in the lower densities. And from the fifth density awareness, a lot of people will choose to become guides for others. A fifth density person would, example, merge with its family of consciousness, over soul or higher self, and it starts to remember. And that's the cultivation of that wisdom. So that's where you have a lot of the people who become like facilitators or healers for others, etc. Like Ashley is very grounded in the density. Then you have from there on, you start to go into the sixth density, which is awareness of the dimension or awareness as the dimension itself. This has often been called Christ consciousness by many people, or Buddha consciousness. It's a frequency level that's equal to that level of actualization. From that frequency, a total remembrance occurs, and one begins to take responsibility for the whole rather than the self. That's where you start doing things like physical grid works. You start messing with the vibrational frequencies in your area when you go outside, balance things. You're as I said, you were not focused in the self, you were focused on the whole of the organism. Because this process, in this process, being in the sixth density, they become the self. The self becomes the whole, and they're one and the same. And then when you move into the seventh density, and it's funny because myself, I jumped from 3D to 4D to fifth density to sixth density, and I'm starting to work. Excuse me. I've been through the seventh density and back, but I came back because it was too much, and I work primarily in fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, but I'm mastering seventh at this point. But so that one is where you have awareness as a multidimensional experience. You have a social memory and a group matrix identity kind of memory. So that's why all the weird things that I post are so disparate on Facebook, but they're focused, and I like to call it nudging, where I'm trying to bring up people who are right at the precipice of remembering something up to speed, because I'm helping to reintegrate and to heal the social memory of people as they're ready to receive things. And so that's why I post about so many different things. This in the seventh density, you have total oneness and integration, in the sense that everything is merged as an identity and becomes a mass conscious whole. There is no self, there is no other, just another stranger you have not yet met. Everything is all one. All of these frequencies get magnetized together and provide the current for the flow. And once you see it, you can be in flow, and you can add yourself to it, but you're not adding yourself to it, you're just becoming aware that you're a part of it, and the things that you do play into it and affect it in a small way and in a big way, but at the same time, depending on how you interact with it. And once the seventh density gets to a critical mass, it'll progress to the point where there's a black hole or an exit point, and that's when humanity will become ready to take proper stewardship over this planet, and at that point it's game over for the people that we've been in a interstellar cosmic war with for the last 200 million years or so. Most notably in recorded history, the last 1,200 years. But also before that, last cataclysmic event, which was a nuclear war, 25,000 years, and that's when they started counting with the Mayan calendar. See, calendars are a recent invention to document how long it was going to be until perhaps the next worldwide extinction event happened. And they realized this about 56,000 years ago and wanted to make a record in stone for whoever was around to take the knowledge and hopefully build so it didn't happen again. And then they invented tablets and paper, and they wanted to not have to go back to square one every time Earth decided, let's just fucking wipe this shit and start over again. At the moment, unfortunately, we're pretty fucking close to the point where the Earth is just going to say fuck this shit and wipe everything all over again.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be the point where the not sold ones would actually win again. And that's what I was writing about the other night too. We can post that in the group perhaps, so people can have some structural integration as far as all the different shit that I've been saying here. And the bottom line is they have now created this AI to absorb all of the people that are stuck in the third density and co-opt them into their program where they're trying to remember their genetics that they lost through the outcome of the original war, and they are using those currently sold humans that aren't living up to their potential as a feedstock to implant themselves into. And they've been learning everything they can with the AI, and they're have been doing this, for a couple hundred years or whatever. And that's where you have like the cloning center talk and all this, and that's just a tertiary or quaternary effect of people becoming aware of this process and starting to disseminate it amongst themselves and discuss it. But really, what you actually have is this has all been going on for a very long time, and it doesn't matter the scale of that or the place where we're at in it. What matters is the final outcome, and that's that they are trying to preserve this planet by absorbing everybody that is fucking the place up into their synthetic quasi-crystalline intelligence network and create their kind in our place, but use their technology to oversoul the soul as basically, to make a metaphor, install a computer chip over the stupid person or the unaware person, and then make them as a species have a place where they can interact with this planet and do what they see to preserve the planet so the whole thing doesn't reset. So that's where it gets really weird, because people often think that the controllers are bad, but they're not. They're just trying to preserve the integrity of the planet, and that goes to a very wide and broad macro breadth, where you see that there's the cosmic, local solar system reality that we're also dealing with here, and that is the integration of this planet within the local solar system and keeping it as a whole and not having it go to shit. And there's a few different points that I'm rotating around, but primarily it's important to understand that when people in positions of power talk about things like global warming or climate change agenda, it's not that they're wrong. Their motivations are different, but they are trying to protect the earth as well. But they just are working for another team, that being the folks that are not sold, which are also not our enemy, but they also do want to have a vested 100% over the earth and have control of it. But the ultimate goal of everything, as we build this seventh density awareness, and they have a place where we can interact with them through the global collective energy field, because they've duped us into developing their stuff and using it. So when we have an overlay in the conscious awareness as a seventh density in a critical mass, we will not integrate per se with them, but we will be at peace with them because we all want the same thing. Any decent human wants to preserve the place where they live, and they want to preserve the place where they live, and that's where we'll find a hegemony or a place of balance where we won't see them as an enemy and they won't see us as an enemy. They see us as an enemy because we're so fucking stupid we destroy the place that we live. So they are trying to take control over us so that doesn't happen. And we see them as an enemy because they're trying to take people's souls and control the way people act. But people only have needed to be controlled in the way that they act because they're so fucking stupid and refuse to learn. So it's really pretty fucking funny when it all boils down to it. But we all want the same thing, and when that blending finally occurs, it's going to be a lot better place to live. And this, the Earth, meanwhile, has started saying, "Okay, fuck all of you motherfuckers," and it's been pumping up the Schumann resonance to the point where it's forcing people into these higher densities, and it literally is forcing people who were staying in the fifth density to jump all of a sudden to the seventh density, and that's like a whole new deck of cards for them because they didn't. The ego was trapping them there. They were stuck in between the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of waffle, and now they're being forced into the 7th to live there and to bring everybody else up. And that's the collective evolution of humanity thing that people are always talking about, and everybody else goes, "Oh no, that's stupid hippie horseshit."
We have about a minute, Omar. If you wanna, I can
sure.
I can slap another one on if you want. It is gonna shut itself.
I'll just finish the thought. It was just about done anyway.
Okay.
That's pretty much where we're at. There was one other thing, but if I remember it, we can just throw it in as a text comment.
Do you wanna keep talking a bit, or are you good here?
I feel pretty good. That's a pretty solid contribution. I think that'll help some people.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, today was the biggest turnout we've had so far. Thanks for coming on, Omar, and we'll talk behind the scenes about other things as well.
Sounds good.
Coffee Collective. I want for myself personally to get the finances things sort of settled. It's also partially my relationship with alcohol, which was holding me back from that. So now that I'm done with alcohol, so I can move forward. But I would appreciate to work with other people as well and creating a collective that sustains everyone financially. That's that. Guess we're not restarting. We'll be back next Sunday. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you got some good information. And So thanks again for listening, everybody. To everybody who made it all the way to the end. I think this one was about 2 hours, and we had the most people we've had so far, which is 5. So thank you to everyone who joined, and I look forward to having more of you on as the Sundays progress and we come out of our caves. All right, take care, everybody. Peace.